This interview with Rocky is about to come on and just bring the heat, talking about leadership, talking about how you can really step into your legacy, discovering that aha moment, discovering the thing that really turns everything around for you. That's what we're going to be diving into. Before we get there, let's talk about the sponsorship message. This is brought to you by the 21-Day Challenge. If you're an entrepreneur, high achiever, you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, lost, unclear about who you're really meant to be, or you know that there's greater potential within you, the 21-Day Challenge will get you clear on those long-term goals, break them down into bite-sized steps, and give you the motivation, the passion, the inspiration, and accountability to achieve that on a daily basis with the disciplines, the habits, and daily rituals to make you succeed. That's the 21-Day Challenge. If you're interested, send me an email, chris@beyourgps.com, or find me on Facebook and message me there. Looking forward to talking to you about your 21-Day Challenge. Next up is the iTunes Review of the Week, and this week it's by ASLD, and ASLD says, "Such an uplifting energy. Chris shines so brightly. This is a man on a mission to spread love and authenticity. I'm in awe of his commitment to having fun, creating a life of fulfillment and abundance, and supporting others to do the same. Keep up the good work, Chris. The world needs you." Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much, and thanks for giving us that review. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes, and you can give us a review there. And we are about to have Rocky on, and it's awesome. He's going to bring the heat, so let's introduce him, and then we'll bring him on for an epic interview. Rocky Romanella, currently founder and president and CEO of 360 Management Services, LLC, and author of the book Tighten the Lug Nuts. 360 Management Services is a complete management services company with seasoned professionals focused on thought leadership, leadership development, and process improvement. Prior, Rocky served as CEO and director of UniTek Global Services based in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania. UniTek Global Services is a provider of engineering, construction management, and installation services to companies specializing in the telecommunications field. Rocky also spent 36 years at UPS, a global corporation with one of the most recognized and admired brands of the world. And we're blessed to have him here with us today for the second time. Rocky, are you ready to rock the house?
Come on, Chris, I'm ready to go. I'm waiting all day for you.
Well, you're now live on Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self, Rocky. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your wisdom with us here today. We appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here, and your audience is such a great interactive audience. So I look forward to our conversation.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So we're going to dive right into the theme of the day, which today is take a stand. So, Rocky, how does this concept of take a stand show up for you in your life?
Well, I think it's important because I think so many people, have thoughts, want to have conversations, but really don't want to make that commitment. I mean, you have to be all in. And so I think that's part of it, right? So what role do I play? How do I make a difference, right? It's kind of this concept of legacy. Do I leave things a little better than I found them? Are people better because of their time with me? Are our customers better because of their interaction with our company, or our stakeholders, share owners? Are they in a better place because we're managing their business? And that's ownership, and that's you're making a commitment. And I think that's why you have to be all in.
Yeah, you have to be all in. And I'm sure you've seen, in managing people and teams, if they weren't all in, if they weren't taking a stand for living the values, the company culture, if they weren't taking a stand for success and cooperation and achieving that target, if they weren't all in on that, then it would probably fall apart and things wouldn't work out. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, because everything you do as the leader speaks.
Yeah.
So if you're not all in as the leader, do you really expect everyone who's in your care and your supervision, that works in your organization, or that's part of your team, you really expect them to be all in, right? So, you think about it, the speed of the leader determines the pace of the pack. So if you're all in, if people see you're committed, if people see that, this is important to you, once it becomes important to you, it becomes important to everybody. So I think that it starts with you making that, commitment, and then it's how you go about your day. It's how you, go about conducting yourself. And I think that's so important.
It's huge, man. That's huge. And I love talking to you, Rocky. I hear these, pieces of wisdom and euphemisms coming out of you like all the time. Speed of the leader, terms of speed of the pack. Gold. I knew bringing you back was going to be a lot of fun. So I'm grateful to have you back, man. And for people who are just connecting with you for the first time, tell them a little bit more about what your clients come to you for and the type of services that, 360 Management brings to people and the difference that you're out to make in the world with them.
Well, thanks, Chris. So our company has three legs of our stool. One leg is our keynote speaking, which I thoroughly enjoy doing, and it's an honor and privilege to get in front of these audiences and help them try to connect the dots and maybe get an aha moment as they start to think about how they manage their business and how they may approach their business in a different way. Second leg of our stool is our leadership training, and we have some very good leadership training that's been developed, but we also do a very good job of meeting with companies and providing them with leadership training that's very specific to what they're trying to accomplish and really kind of bring in their goals, their culture, and the things they're trying to accomplish. And the third leg of our stool is which I wouldn't say is traditional consulting. It's more along process improvement. How do you define the processes and then train and develop your people to understand the processes? Because once you fix something, you want it to stay fixed. And so the way you get consistency is by having a good process in place, make sure people understand what roles they play. And so that's the third leg of our stool. And so that's a little bit about 360. We're all seasoned veterans. I'm over 40 years. Bill Klussman is on our team and really leads our consulting practice. Is over 35 years of business. Mark Horton's outstanding finance management person who has done a lot of the M&A work and behind the scenes things. Ed Pike is our sales and marketing, and those are our four, as we make the four kind of leadership team. But then it's really nice when you go in to work with a company and you say, oh, hi, I'm Rocky, I got 40 years of business. Hi, I'm Bill, I got 36. So they feel like, okay, you've done some things, and you've seen good, bad, and and indifferent or ugly, however you want to put it. So
yeah, that's right.
So that's right. You can reach us on the web at www. It's the number 3 and the word 60managementservices.com. A lot of what I talk about on my keynotes and training is in the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts. And I think that book serves well as a fun read, but kind of a read that you kind of tilt your head and say, oh, okay, I can look at this a little bit differently. So,
yeah. That's powerful, man. I love it. I love it. So, Rocky, one thing we really love to do is to share about the story. So, specifically about leaving a legacy. I want to go back into your story and journey about why you wanted to really focus on that, focusing on leaving the legacy, creating people with giving those ahas to them, given that experience where things break open, they see things from a whole new perspective. Why don't you take us back and, I know we talked about it before, but the relevant parts that gave you that perspective and that passion and that purpose to help people with their legacy and the ahas. Well, let's go back and talk about how you got to where we are today, so to speak.
Well, I think legacy is so important because for me, legacy is this concept of, do you leave things a little better than you found them? Are people better because of their time with you? I think that's so important. Are your customers better? That's the first piece. The second piece is I think we have this concept of leadership, and you're only a leader if you have a title, and I don't agree with that at all. We're all leaders at one time or another. We could be a leader as an individual contributor. We could be a leader in a more traditional sense, or captain of a baseball team, or football team, or the cheerleading squad. So we're all leaders at one time. Parents, grandparents. So we're all leaders at one time or another. And so I think that when you think about that, then that concept of legacy, and when I get the opportunity to address groups of people, especially graduating seniors, and you're talking to them about going into the business world, I always tell them, think about what is that word that you want people to describe you at the end of your career.
Yeah.
Right. And you always get a lot of words, Chris. Energetic, aggressive, decision. Whatever. They can't say decision maker. I guess with a hyphen we could use it. But it's funny, for me, the word was always thoughtful. I wanted people to think of me as a thoughtful leader, which to me didn't mean I gave the store away. I couldn't hold people accountable. To me, it meant that I thought through things, and that I took the key constituents into, when I made my decisions, your customers, our people, and our shareholders or stakeholders. And so for me, that's the word. But I think what's important to this concept of legacy, if you go back from there, then throughout your whole career, you're sort of building on that word that you want people to remember you by. So if you're a thoughtful leader, you're going to treat people with dignity and respect generally. You're going to think about, okay, we're going to do an acquisition. We understand how it impacts our customers. We understand how it impacts our revenue and maybe profitability, but how does it impact our people? A thoughtful leader would think through, well, how about our people? Who's going to be impacted by this acquisition? So I think that if you work backwards, Chris, you start to build on that legacy. Now, what's interesting is that's changed, right? So, obviously with over 40 years of business, we've seen some changes, or I've seen some changes. I think there's another piece of this legacy. Now you have to think about how social media impacts your legacy, right?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, in the past, it was word of mouth was still the best advertisement. And as a leader, it's what people said about you, potentially someday, at your eulogy, what are they saying about you? Well, in today's world, you also have that social media piece of it as well. Mm-hmm. What are people saying about you, and how have you projected yourself on a social media platform, right? And so I think today we have to think a little bit more about that as people enter into the marketplace, and as they start to project themselves. How many times do you sit and think to yourself, well, I hope they don't go back to 5 years ago and Google me, that.
Yep.
So I think that's a little bit different in your legacy, but more importantly, you're building your legacy. And so I think that's so important.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. So I love how you said that the word for you at the end of your life, what you want to be remembered by, is thoughtful. I think that's powerful. When did you discover that was your word, that was your intention? And how did you just think of, what do I want to be remembered by? Was it as simple as that?
No, it's funny. It's I started out like everybody else. I just need to get a job. I went to college. I got a family now. We had 4 beautiful kids. So hey, I got to make some money here. College tuition. So no, I wasn't as much of a prophet as I'm sounding like today. It's absolutely not. But what happens is as you move through your career and you start to realize the impact that you do have on yourself, your family, and people, is you start to think about that. Well, what is that word? And what is it about me, that differentiates me from everyone else? And so you start to think about that a little bit differently. Now, today I challenge people to do that as they're beginning their career because, and believe me, Chris, it'll probably change for people over the course of time, and that's okay because you're evolving. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's important for you to at least kind of have that vision of, well, who do I want? Who am I? What do I stand for as a person? And what are the things I won't compromise? Is it integrity? Is it safety? Is it, I'm going to be true to my, I'm going to make sure that I treat people with dignity and respect. Or what are those things? And so you start to define yourself the same way. If you and I were starting a company, we'd probably at some point early on define our values and our mission statement and define who we are, it's really the same. It's your brand as an individual. I guess that's a good way of putting it. And what's your brand promise? What does it stand for? And what can people expect when they hire Chris, or they hire Rocky Romanella, or they put Rocky or Chris in charge of their business? One other thing though I did learn though along the way that I thought was so important on this concept of legacy, and why I kind of understand leadership differently. When you think about legacy, as you and I talked, well, I think sometimes we get caught up in this concept of a title or a particular profession. But let me give you an example of who I think a profession that has some of the greatest legacy moments that probably do not think of themselves in the term of leader. To me, it's teachers. So let's think about this, Chris. If you and I were in a conference and we had a room full of people, and I made the statement, hey, who in here knows who their state senator is, or who their representative is, or who the head of the board of education is? Most people could not raise their hand or answer that question. But if I ask the question, who's that teacher that made a difference in your life? Everybody stops, tilts their head. Miss So-and-so, 5th grade. Yeah. Mr. So-and-so. Me was a nun. Sister So-and-so. So if you think about it, everyone has that teacher who's made a difference in their life. Well, isn't that legacy? They left things a little better. Right? I mean, whether you like or dislike the New England Patriots, you got to say that Belichick's got a legacy, and there's, Andy Reid has a legacy of coaches. I think there's 2 coaches that have won a Super Bowl before him, unfortunately for him. But if you think about it, that's a legacy. People are better because of their time with them. Well, most of us are better because of some teacher in our life. And so if a teacher actually sat down and wrote down all the successful people in their class, she or he would have a long list of success and a really great legacy.
Wow. Yeah. So is it the mentality of a teacher that makes them create the legacy? Like, because, if you think about a traditional job and a boss, it's more so just show up and collect the paycheck. A lot of people kind of think of that in a traditional job. But a teacher's like, hey, I'm here to teach. I'm here to educate. I'm here to make sure that this person leads a good life. This child, to make sure that they lead an amazing life. Like, that's what I'm here. Like, I only have them for a year or whatever it might be. Like, I have to make the biggest difference possible. Do you think that there's a certain mindset that teachers approach the situation with that has them leave that legacy?
Well, I think absolutely. And I think you really summed it up nicely, because they start out with the vision of making it better, right? My goal here is to get, if I have 20 students in my class, my goal here is to get all 20 to be able to connect the dots. My goal is that from September until they walk out the door in June, they're better students, they're better educated, they know more things than when they started. So they have this accountability, self-accountability, that really holds them accountable to that process, right? Okay, people got to be better than when from day one to the end of the 180 days later, they have to be better, smarter. So I think that I think that kind of puts them on that path, and so they're thinking that way. They may not articulate it as legacy. They may not think of it as legacy. They may just most great teachers think, well, I'm doing my job. It's my profession. But for me, when I started to look at this concept of leadership and that we're all leaders at one time or another, and you take away the titles, and then what really defines a good leader, it really came down to me is legacy. Did Rocky Romanella leave things a little better than they found?
Yeah.
And if he did or she did, well, then, you know what? They left a little bit of a legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also hear what you mentioned earlier about knowing who you are, knowing those values that you stand for. I can see a teacher saying, I know who I am. I know what kind of a classroom I want to run. I know what I want like these kids to get, what's important to me, whether it's communication, whether it's doing good on tests, being studious, being, maybe it's discipline. Maybe that's what they want to teach, whatever it is. The teacher will uphold the value because that's their classroom. That's their container, their context that, when a student comes in, here's what happens when students come in my class. And I'm sure that evolves over time, but the teacher probably doesn't think about legacy, just like a boss, or a good leader, so to speak, doesn't necessarily think about legacy, but they think of when someone comes to work for me, here's the container that they step into. They grow, there's measures in their performance, they know how they're doing, they know what they're good at, what they're not so great at, the areas that they need to work on, and it's like the leader's responsibility to make sure that they're educating and training their team to become better.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the other thing is that teachers intuitively and understand the difference between communication and education, right? And so I think that, companies today spend a tremendous amount of time on communication. And if you think about some of the largest organizations, they do some of the best communication in the world. Yeah. It's very professional, it's well done, it's distributed widely and broadly. However, I would argue that where they miss it is on the education piece. So for me, the difference between communication and education is accountability. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we're in a classroom and our teacher's going through all the information about George Washington, that's communication. Yeah. The education comes when they give us the test. And so now they gave us the test. So now there's accountability. Did we learn? Did we understand the differences and uniquenesses of George Washington per the lesson plan? Well, if all they did was communicate it to us and then let us go, and no one ever knows whether we really know those things, well, then it's communication. Right. Education is, do I understand what role I play, and can I pass the test? And if you think about it in business, if you think about some of the companies that have gotten themselves in trouble, right? I'm sure they were communicated the values, the mission statements, and all those things. But when tested, they failed if they had an integrity violation. Wow. And so you wonder, were they communicated to but never educated? Do they understand that, okay, I gave you this information, knowledge bears responsibility, do I own this responsibility? And do you test them along the way kind of idea? And so I think that intuitively teachers understand that difference between communication and education.
How does a leader test, so to speak, their team to make sure that they're living the values? Let's say a leader wants to instill company culture. What's a good way to test that? Is it simply asking, hey, do you recite our company values? Is that something as simple as that, or would you say it needs more in depth? What do you think, Rocky?
Well, I think it's a combination of some things. The first is you have to walk the talk as the leader. And we talked about that in the early part, that, yeah, everything we do speaks as a leader. We've got to get out there. People have to see we're all in, that we've bought in, and that we're completely committed. You know, one of the reasons why leaders never leave their office is there's no problems in my office. So, but once I see a problem, I have to address that problem. I'm not allowed to silently sanction a problem or bad behavior as a leader. And so what happens is so for example, if you have a culture of safety, that, you know, it's a safety culture, safety first, safety something that we don't, you know, we never compromise. Well, the first time, you know, so to answer your question, the way you go out and you test is, I go out there and I'm on a walk and I see one of my best employees, all excited, can't wait to help out, but they're running from point A to point B. Now, some people would say, oh, I love his energy, love his or her enthusiasm, this is great. No, I have to stop them and say, hey, appreciate your energy, love your enthusiasm, but you have to walk. Well, the minute I don't say that, or I see a driver leaving and he or she doesn't have their seatbelt on, but they're my best driver, and it's like, you know what, I love the job they do with service and performance. Well, yeah, but they don't have their seatbelt on, and if I don't address that. So by going to look is one way. Asking the right leading questions, you'll find out how people, you know, feel about those kinds of things, and do they understand them and do they live them. And frankly, the last thing is, look, we all know that if yesterday we were producing 2 widgets an hour, some time during the day we had a meeting and said we got to get to 4. And tomorrow I wake up and there's 4. I got to tilt my head and say, wait a second, how do we go from 2 to 4 so fast? Right? Well, because I got the answer I want, it doesn't allow me to say, well, okay, let me accept this and look the other way. You know, wrong. You have to protect them sometimes by asking the right question. Hey, look, I appreciate everybody getting to 4, but did we really get to 4? Did we got 4? Can someone please show me 4 widgets here? And, you know, I think that it's asking the right questions sometimes before things get, you know, because if you think about some of the, you know, stories in the paper and some of these companies that got themselves in trouble, you know, somewhere along the line, somebody had to say, hey, something's not right here.
Right.
How can we be signing up all these accounts but have no new revenue? Something's not right. So I think that that's a way to kind of perform your test in a positive way by walking, looking, asking. And then finally, you set the tone from the top. If you're the person, you have to be a person that's willing to accept bad news. If you're never willing to accept bad news, you know what happens, Chris?
What?
You don't get any bad news. Nobody tells you. So
it's like the ostrich that sticks its head in the sand, right? Like avoiding the predator, thinking the predator is going to go away.
Well, yeah, it's like when they say to someone, well, how come nobody told them? Well, he didn't want to hear it anyway. So, I mean, every time we told him, you're crazy, go fix it, you know, or, you know, the famous, do whatever it takes. What does that mean? I mean, do you think I wasn't trying before? I mean, you know, so I think that it's the way you conduct yourself. It's the tone you set from the top and the way you ask the questions, the way you conduct yourself. So
yeah, that's powerful. It's powerful. And, you know, I love how you said, if you say, hey, we're at 2 widgets now, let's get to 4 the next day, it's important to check in on that, you know, like, how did we get to there so quickly? 1, because you want to make sure that no corners are being cut, but also 2, if there's something that took the performance, like, you know, 10x or whatever, double the performance, you want to know what's that ingredient. So if it's a good ingredient, you can duplicate it in other processes and systems as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, there's going to be times where, you know, people get themselves, you know, or organizations or teams get themselves in this position. Well, we might have gone off the rail a little bit. We might have let people get off the rail. You know, I always tell the story about, you know, I was in 5th grade and, you know, sister, you know, comes in and says, look, somebody took a pencil. I don't care who took the pencil. When I turn the light off, when I turn the light on, I'd like the pencil back. So she turns the light off. 10 minutes later, turns the light back on. Chris, there was pencils, notebooks, books. We cleansed ourselves. Sometimes you got to give people a chance. Good people working hard sometimes get themselves in awkward positions. And before it gets too far out, you may want to say, hey, wait a second. Look, let's turn the light off. I just want to get this thing. What we did yesterday is not an evaluation, not a criticism, but we have to go in a different direction. There's procedures and processes we have to follow. Now, you can't violate a law, break a policy. You got that. But as long as we're not breaking a law, violating a policy, it's a style thing. It's a way we're approaching things. it's maybe we thought we were doing the right thing, but we've kind of now gone too far.
Yeah.
I think that's when you kind of, hey, time out. I'm not looking to, fire everybody. I'm not looking to throw everybody under the bus. What I'm looking to do is recognize that look, going forward, we have to do it this way. Need your help. Let's move forward.
Yeah. One of the big parts of leaving a legacy is getting that feedback, right? To know that you're doing the best and impacting people, being a great leader, you have to be open to receiving that feedback. And in addition to that, the bad news. How do you invite the leaders who are just starting to get comfortable with receiving that constructive criticism, or they maybe need to take it to the next level and be even more aware of that and open themselves up to that feedback? How do you invite them to shift their perspective to receive that and want to receive that?
Well, I think it's very important that you have the ability to give good constructive criticism and not kind of do it in a demotivating way. And B, I think you have to accept constructive criticism. And so I think so. Let's take it from my perspective first, as a person getting criticism. Look, people have to be able to, in the appropriate way, in a professional way, be able to walk into your office, close the door, and say, hey, look, I know this is what you think and this is what you like to see happen, but that's not what's happening. And so you have to invite that feedback, and you have to invite people to want to tell you that feedback. Now, sometimes if they don't know you and you're new to it, you frankly to ask them, hey, look, I'm here. You all have diplomatic immunity. What's going on here? What am I missing here? So that's one way of doing it. The other way is that if someone does bring you something, and even if you don't 100% agree, you go along with things so that they see that you're willing. If every time you bring me something, I say to you, yeah, that's true, Chris, but, well, then you're never going to bring me anything. My example, it's funny, in the book's written in a third person, Joe Scafone. And Joe Scafone was developed years and years ago because one of the things I didn't like from my perspective was when Chris brought me a new idea, I'd say, I don't know, Chris, let me think about it. Or, you think you could look at it this way? I always felt like I was kind of building a wall, or maybe you were feeling like, well, I didn't think it's a good idea. So I created this character. I would say, hey, Chris, I think it's a good idea, but you think Joe Scafone thinks it's a good idea? And so Joe Scafone became that person who then I could challenge you to maybe not stop at the first right answer. What you brought me was good, but can you look past that first right answer? And so that's how Joe Scafone was. So for me, that became my way. Everybody's got their own style, but you have to find a way, because your job is to kind of get everyone to not accept that first right answer and to challenge themselves to be the best that they can be, to look past that answer, to kind of break through paradigms and barriers. And you do that by challenging them for their best at all times. But you want to do it in a positive way. On the other side of the equation, you want them to bring you things, you got to accept it. And if you don't, how many times did you bring something to someone you work for and they're sitting there and they're wordsmithing? It's like the difference between this word or that. Really? That's what you're down to. The context is right. The term is right. But now you're going to be a thesaurus so that you can mark it up and hand it back to me? Think about that from the other person's perspective. Okay, did all this work for you? You asked me to do this, and now all of a sudden you decided that you were going to be the thesaurus? We should have done it yourself then. Now, you can't say that to your boss, but that's what you're thinking, right? Really? So I think that in that case, maybe I wouldn't have used that word, but if it's the word is the right word and it's used in the right context, perfect, good job, thank you very much. That's the best shot of you wanting to do something again for me, right?
Yeah. So I hear that having the willingness to say, okay, this is good, or it works, great effort, and, is there a different way? Is there another way? Can you stretch a little bit more? Is there any other possibilities that you might have missed that could be an even more effective method or procedure?
Yes, I think that's absolutely correct.
That's awesome, man. I love it, and I love how you say that the thesaurus part, right? Because it's like, you can bring something to someone, and it's like, hey, I want feedback on this, and they're like, oh, change this word. Well, all of that.
It's funny, and you think about some of the strategy sessions you sat in, over my career, or some of the things that we did, some of the big things that we did, right? Yeah. But some of the longest, most tedious meetings I've ever been at is, okay, we're going to develop a mission statement. Oh my God, you could spend hours on a mission statement because, well, maybe the word is energy. No, it's high energy. No, it's low energy. It's energetic. Really? Come on. But you could spend, Chris, hours. So that's when you start to think to yourself, like, is there something better we could do with our time here? Is that a word? But those were some of the ones, right? Because then everybody feels like, oh, I can, got an opinion on this, but can we get to a solution here? Before the day. I used to always say, when you work in a big company, there's a lot of, as you can imagine, there's all kinds of bureaucracy. I used to always say, thank God we're not ambulance drivers. It's like, come on, can we just get to an answer here, please?
That's awesome, man. So tell us a little bit more about the aha moments. Where did that verbiage come from, and how does that play into your consulting, your speaking, and what you do at 360 Management Services?
Well, I think along the way, as you grow and develop as an individual, both personally and professionally, I think you have these, what I consider these key aha moments, which really become defining moments for you and kind of change the way you think about it. Now, I'll quickly share mine with you is, I just dropped it, but anyway. So mine happened in this place in Hershey, Pennsylvania. There's a Hershey Kiss, which we can see. And so when I was younger, when I was a child, we would go to the Hershey factory. Mm-hmm. And in those days, the Hershey factory was actually a factory, and the book I dropped was actually the Milton Hershey book. And so you could tour the factory. And in those days, the factory was kind of like it was under glass. And so you could see people making the chocolate. And as a young child, it was so cool to see the chocolate being made and all the workers working and the little kisses being made. Yeah. But years later, as I was walking through my facility in Illinois, I stopped for a second and I thought to myself, you know what? Think about the confidence that Hershey must have had in all of its employees, that people could walk in at any time and the chocolate was being made. And think about that confidence you had to have in your people, that people were doing the right things. Yeah. And so I thought to myself, could a customer walk in my facility now? Will they ever ship another package again? I got to run a Hershey factory. I've got to run my operation as if it's under glass, and that someone could come in here at any time. And from that point forward, I challenged all of myself and all of my people to run their Hershey factory. We're a place that anybody can walk in at any time. A customer could walk in at any time. It's like the old adage, if you're going in a restaurant, never walk through the kitchen. Well, in the Hershey factory, you'd always walk through the kitchen. Yeah. And so for me, that was my aha moment when it came to running operations and putting my customers, goods and services in a place where they would be really proud, right? And they can walk through here unannounced. How many times do you get some a person to do work in your house and you say, hey, do you have any references? And they say, can you call so-and-so at 2:00 on Thursday? You're thinking, is that the only person I can call? Is that like a family member or something? No. Hey, here's my book of people. Here's all the people I've done work with. Go look at it anytime you want, or go call them on your own. So I think that's the concept. So for me, that was the aha moment. I thought about that along our lives, both personally and professionally, we sometimes get these great aha moments, but we never get the chance. We never really take the time to kind of smell the roses and say, wait a second, or smell the chocolate. Right. You know what? That was great. It was a great moment there. And I learned it not in a book, or I didn't learn it at a workshop or at a seminar. I kind of really learned it from an experience that I had. My second aha moment came from my wife. I mean, Deb's been such a great influence in my life, such a great partner, friend, and I certainly wouldn't be here without her. But one day we went out to dinner with a couple, and we had just recently met them. We were kind of getting to know each other at dinner, and the woman says to Debbie, "Hey, we have 4 kids. Who's your favorite child?" And so I'm thinking to myself, I want to see how she answers this. So let's see. So Debbie says, well, I don't have a favorite. And the woman says, come on, you got to have a favorite. Is it Jean Marie, Nicole? She goes through them all, Rocky, Andrew. Debbie says, no, they're all my favorites. And then she said to the woman, so how could that be? And so Debbie answers it in a way that to me was my second major aha moment, but it was so thoughtful, so caring, and said so much about her. She said, they're all my favorite because each of them gets what they need when they need it. Now think about that. Each of them gets what they need when they need it. So they all feel like they're the favorite. And from that day forward, Chris, I managed all my operations with that in mind. If I had a seasoned CFO, what they needed wasn't me over managing them. They didn't need me asking them any questions. What they needed was me to give them the authority that goes with their responsibility and just be the cheerleader. Good job. Keep up the good work. How you doing? What do you need? Any help from me? You got to go.
Yeah.
Now, if I had a new director of sales who may have needed more of my time and effort, well, then that would have been everybody gets what they need. What they needed was more time with me. Maybe I would go help them close a deal. They get their first big win. They feel good about themselves. So for me, that second aha moment was so impactful to me because I managed going forward with that thought process that everyone in your care, everyone who works on behalf of your organization and works in your company or works on your team, each of them needs to get what they need when they need it, and you have to recognize that as the leader, and you have to recognize that as the person in charge. What does Chris need? What Chris needs may be different than Rocky needs, and may be different than Andrew needs. And so for me, that was my second aha moment. So I challenge people, you've had aha moments out there, you just haven't recognized them that way. Because everyone's always looking for that book that's going to give them the answer, or that, I saw a brilliant speaker. And, you see some really good speakers, but you know what? There's a lot of good aha moments in your family, among your family, your friends, and the experiences that you have in your life.
Yeah. So it's more so to look at, hey, what are the major lessons that I've been taught, that life has taught me, the things that possibly even slipped right underneath our nose, and say, like, wow, if we look back, we can see those defining moments, those formative moments where we became who we are today. And if we're more self-aware and know what's important to us, know how we show up today, we can look back and say, well, that's why I am the way that I am today. And it's not so much about looking for the ahas, but just recognizing that they're always around us to guide us and shape us to be our best selves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. One of my daughter, Jean Marie's a elementary ed special ed teacher, and one of her favorite stories is growing up was Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus by Mo Williams, right? And so, of course, there's three main characters. There's the bus driver, there's the pigeon, and, of course, the people on the bus. And I use that as an example in a lot of leadership training, that on any one given day, you're all three of them. Some days you're the bus driver. Some days you're on the bus, and the bus driver says, hey, don't let the pigeon drive the bus. Some days you're the pigeon who's, hey, let me drive the bus. Why can't I drive the bus? Please let me drive the bus. I can't believe you want me to drive the bus. Well, in any one given day, and I was telling people, look, as a CEO, most people thought I was the bus driver until I was dealing with the board, and I was on the bus. I wasn't, or the share owners. You're on an investor call. You're not the bus driver. You're running the organization on behalf of the share owners. So if you think about it, on any one given day, or through the course of your career, or in a situation that you're in, some days you're the bus driver. Some days you're the people on the bus, and some days you're the pigeon. And if you recognize that, then you start to have more patience, more understanding, and a better relationship with all of the members of your team, right? Because on any one given day, depending on the situation you're in, the meeting you may be in, or the role that you have at this particular time, you may have just gone from the bus driver, but now you just got promoted. Now you may be on the bus.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? How do you handle that? And then how do you have respect for the other two players, the pigeon and the bus driver, if you're the person on the bus now? So I think, some of those lessons happen in some of the, in the neatest ways, and it happens around you. You just have to be open to, hey, I'm learning stuff, but just not always in the most traditional sense. Like this. I mean, think about your 24-hour marathons, or 12-hour marathons. I'm sorry. They seem like 24 to you. But think about that, right? You're meeting different people. I mean, I would say, truth be told, you probably believe you get more out of it than the audience does. The audience thinks, well, they get more out of it than poor Chris does because he's worrying about, trying to organize. But you're both getting a lot out of it, right? Because you're meeting different people, new personalities, and new thought processes.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely, Rocky. It's when we're able to shift our perspective and see things from different people's perspective, and like you said, the pigeon, the students on the bus, and then the bus driver, when we can put ourselves in those different places, then we can have a lot more empathy. We can be a lot more resourceful. We can accomplish our goals with more synergy and more resourcefulness in that process. So I think that's brilliant. And as far as the legacy, how do you feel like you make the biggest difference and impact in legacy when you're speaking on stage? I know that's a big part and something that's super important for you.
Well, I think what's important is for me is that concept of how, you start to get people, because people don't generally think about legacy as something that they're leaving behind, or that how people kind of view them, right? Or the evaluation of them as a leader. And so I think that for me, what's exciting is that I love when I'm in this, kind of in this setting, and you start to talk about it, and you really start to see people, kind of connecting that dot of, yeah, that's important. And the other thing I like to always talk about, who's that person that's made a difference in your life? And there's always, like we said, the teacher, but there's also someone in a leadership role, for example. Well, isn't that legacy, right? We all have that person that, wow, we worked for that, And the other thing I think is interesting when we have these discussions, and again, you can look, me now. We've done 2 of these. I'm not going to do a speech without telling you a few stories, making you laugh. And we're going to have some fun. We work hard enough. Why not? So, so that's the other thing too, is you do it in a way that you're not evaluating them that they didn't understand that legacy was important. What you're trying to get them to understand is that it is. And by the way, you probably are doing it anyway, but let me just kind of format it for you in a way that says, oh, wait a minute, I do that. Okay, that's good. I always tell people when they read the book, they're going to smile. They're probably going to email me like they always do, tell me their favorite story. But a lot of times what happens is what I want to happen is, hey, I do that, or I don't maybe do it with that style. Well, that's a good thing. It reinforces that, we're good people working hard, just trying to do the best job we can. And it's good that you put the book down and you say, yeah, I do those couple of things. You know what? That's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll look at doing it or approaching it differently that way. So I think that that's what you want, is sometimes people just want that reinforcement. Hey, I'm a good person working hard. Not every day goes the way I want, but boy, it's not because of lack of effort.
That's right, man. So it's really, I hear, to have them own that they're already doing a lot of these things, or they already know about it. It's like, I get that concept, I get that principle. Now it's reinforcement. I think that reinforce that they're already doing good, especially in Tighten the Lug Nuts. The mindset is like, you already have the vehicle, so to speak. Just make sure it's optimized, and make sure you're paying attention in the right places, putting the lubricant on and keeping the thing going at the optimal speed.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny. I had the opportunity, one of my finest great moments that I had in my business career was I got the chance to spend 4 hours with legendary coach John Wooden. It was just an honor. And in fact, if you get a chance and you go to my website under our podcast, or no, actually it's on the YouTube page. I have the 1 hour interview with him. But he said something to me. He had some great lines, some great comments he made. But he was talking about how Lou Alcindor, and now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was on the team, and he said to him one day, he said, "Look, you may be the best player on our team, but those 4 other players, the 4 wheels of this car, without them, you're not going anywhere. So you may be the strongest engine we have, but you got to make sure that the 4 wheels are always in sync with you." And you think about that. That's so important, right? How everybody's role is important in how, how we work together. And while I may not be the quarterback, or I may not be the engine, this car is going nowhere. And of course, in Tighten the Lug Nuts, loose lug nuts can be fixed easily. But when you allow important things like a loose lug nut to become urgent because you didn't tighten them and the wheel falls off, then everything kind of goes, up in the air, right? All of a sudden you get overwhelmed because you can only handle so many urgent things. So, tighten the lug nuts. Don't allow important things to become urgent. Take care of things when you can take care of them. So that kind of concept.
Yeah, it's powerful. I love it. So, with being thoughtful as the thing you want to be remembered by in this lifetime, how do you see yourself showing up thoughtfully this year? What's the biggest way you're expressing that and demonstrating that this year?
Well, for me, it's funny. I've never had good. I talk about balanced leadership, but I probably wasn't always the best with kind of work-life balance or understanding that. For me, the thoughtful thing, the thing I really want to focus on is really being a good grandfather, and really making sure that one of the things that I learned, that knowing what I know today, if I could go back and fix, is the difference between need to do and nice to do. And I think sometimes we confuse those. And the need to do things is to spend quality time with your family, and we'll take care of this one particular problem at work, for example, that is need to do. Yeah. But there's nice to do things that sometimes that you do, but it's at the expense of something else. And so for me, as you know, 360 is a passion for me. I enjoy the speaking, love the training and the consulting that we do, but I want to make sure it's in balance with making sure, we spend the time with Deb. I mean, we've moved around the country 9 different times. And so I want to make sure that I spend the right quality time with her. I want to make sure I spend the right time with my grandkids. And so for me, it's about a little bit more of a kind of a work-life balance. I mean, I'm always going to be 150 miles an hour with my hair on fire, no matter how hard I try. But I think that there's that piece of I want to be thoughtful, not only, to the clients that we have and the opportunities that we have, but also, to my family that's been so supportive and so good to me throughout this whole journey we've had. I mean, think about it. For kids moving, we started in New Jersey, went across the country, Syracuse, Des Moines, Iowa. Can you picture Rocky Romanella in Des Moines, Iowa? I love Des Moines, by the way. But number one question I got asked in Des Moines, Iowa was, are you in a witness protection program? Or Rocky Romanella? So, but great places, but we loved Iowa. Put that in one of our best places to live. The people were wonderful. But Southern California, we were in Orange County for a while. Yeah. But so we moved across the country, and look, the kids were wonderful. Debbie was tremendous with the way she handled all that. But now, you know what? It's a different time in my life. So my thoughtfulness for me is in 2019 is to make sure I have that right balance and understand what are the need to do things and what are the nice to do things, and make sure that I don't allow believing everything's a need to do and missing out on the really nice to do things too.
Yeah, 100%, Rocky. This is amazing. And if we could sum up the legacy and the aha message in a couple sentences, just to remind people what to take action on from this interview, what would that be?
Just ask yourself that question. Do I leave things a little better than I found them, whether it's people, customers, or share owners? Second thing is take inventory of three key things. You've got to be able to look in the mirror and answer these three questions. Who am I? What do I stand for? And what are the things I won't compromise? And then finally, the third thing is find your aha moment. It's out there. Just be open to it. Don't try to create it, because then it's not an aha moment. Then it's a staged event. No, but there's aha moments all around you. And it happens from your people. It happens from the people you work with. It happens from the people you interact with in your family, church, on a Little League field, and in your family. So there's aha moments out there. Just enjoy them. And then, have those moments of, I can see how that works. I see how I can make a difference. So I think that, enjoy them. They're great moments out there. And I think if you can enjoy those aha moments, they strengthen you as a person and as a professional, but they also get you that smile because they're just great memories that now you've kind of recognized them as what they are. Great memories that made a difference in your life.
100%, Rocky. I love this. Our audience is loving this. How do they stay connected with you? What are their next actions to take to continue the journey with the Rocco Romanella? How do they do that?
All right. I like that. All right, Rocco. I'm waiting for one of the nuns in grammar school to hit me in the back of the head. So you can obviously on our website is www. It's the number 3 and the word 60managementservices.com. The book is a 5-star. We got some great reviews. Book's selling well on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. And one thing really good, Chris, I'm really proud of. For every book sold this year, we're making a donation to the Jimmy Valvano Fund to find the cure. So really excited about that. Please help us try to help that wonderful cause. As you know, Coach Valvano, more than 25 years ago, gave such a riveting and such an emotional speech right before his passing. So if we can help out on the V Foundation, that's what we're trying to do. So the sale of the books, we're making a donation. You can buy the book online, as I said, or on our website. And then, of course, I'm RockyRomanella@gmail.com. You can email me that way, and our website's very interactive. I do answer the things myself. I do answer my own email, so you're gonna get me. If that's what you're looking for, you got me.
I love it, Rocky. Dude, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and being the family man that you are, and also helping businesses and entrepreneurs and leaders to excel and make that impact, leave that legacy, help the people around them have more ahas as they just show up to educate, to be that great leader. So I really appreciate the work you do, and thank you so much for coming on again, man. You're an all-star. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. My pleasure. Good luck. And hey, man, drink some water. You got a few more hours to go.
I promise, man.
Drink some water, man. Come on. I feel bad. I didn't take a chance. Take a break. All right, be safe. Always great talking to you, Chris. God bless you.
Appreciate you. See you soon.